today we're going to bake buns and we're going to talk about grounding and mindfulness techniques. So grounding techniques are techniques that can help keep us in the present moment. They can ground us into the present moment in times of high stress, anxiety, anger, or upset. These techniques can help calm signs of distress in the body, like increased heart rate, difficulty breathing, racing thoughts, or shakiness. A lot of our stress or anxiety thoughts are either future focused or looking back on the past. We're either thinking about something that's already happened or worrying about something that we have no idea will even come. I'm a worrier, and in fact, I'm someone who can think of the worst case scenario in all possible moments. When I'm baking, it helps to ground me in my body so that my brain can safely explore anything that it needs to. If you're a worrier or anxious person like me, you might find that grounding techniques and using baking as a grounding activity might be really helpful for you also. Mindfulness practices have been shown to help people adjust to their current circumstances, decrease cortisol, which is the stress hormone, decrease anxiety symptoms, and just improve overall well-being. When we're practicing mindfulness, we really want to be careful to just not judge our observations and just let them come as they are. We want to be open and curious to receive input from our environment and just notice that it's happening. So as we're baking today, if you notice thoughts like, I feel stupid, I'm really bad at this isn't going well, or even something like, I could be doing laundry instead of baking, I just want you to notice those thoughts. We're not going to judge them. We didn't fail because they came up. We're just going to notice that they happened and turn our attention back to the here and now by focusing in on the sensations of our baking. This will be like meditation in its simplest form. A really popular grounding technique is called the 5 senses technique, or 5-4-3-2-1 grounding. You may have heard of this one before, seeing it on social media, hearing about it from a support, like a friend or a therapist. It's pretty popular because you can use it anytime, anywhere, you don't need any equipment, and most people actually wouldn't even know you're doing it. So how does it work? We're going to focus on 5 things that we can see, 4 things we can feel, 3 things we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing we can taste. We're going to use this kind of general idea today as we're baking our buns. We won't stick to those numbers, but we are going to use our senses at every step of the bake to check in with our body and stay present rather than just baking our way through a recipe and coming out with buns at the end. We want to stay grounded in the present moment and mindful every step of the way. So we're going to use our senses at check points every time to just notice what's happening for us and be there the whole way through. Let's get started. All right, when we get started, we always want to have everything ready to go so that we're not poking around in the fridge, in the pantry, rushing around to get all the things that we need. We just want everything set out and ready. So I have all of the supplies that I need, and I have all of the ingredients that I need, and I have my recipe. Now, today, I'm going to be using my stand mixer for most of it. I have a dough hook attached to help with kneading the buns. If you don't have one of these, that's no problem. You can knead it completely by hand. It just might take a little bit more time. Or if you have a hand mixer, you can see if that does the trick. But for me today, this is what I'm going to be using. And towards the end, I'll probably just knead by hand for a little bit. So let's get going. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to warm up our milk so that the yeast can bloom in the warm milk. I like to take the temperature of my milk because I've had a lot of times before where I have either made the milk too hot, which can kill your yeast, or I've tried to be too cautious and the milk wasn't warm enough, so it didn't bloom the way I wanted it to. So I'm just going to warm the milk up. I'm going to take its temperature at about 110 degrees Fahrenheit to make sure it is right and we're not going to kill our yeast. So first we're going to take a cup of whole milk. That's about right. And I'm just going to pop it in the microwave and take the temperature intermittently to make sure it's right. Let's see how we did. It's at about 80, so not quite warm enough yet. We're just gonna pop it in for a few more seconds. Still not quite there. We're gonna put it in for just a few more, and I always do less rather than more, because you can always add more. You can't always take stuff away. Or you could, but then you'd be waiting a while for your milk to cool down. So just a few more seconds. And we got it. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to microwave it that way. You can wing it, but this is just the way I do it to make sure that everything's good to go and we don't wreck our yeast, because I've wasted some before, which is a-okay if you just want to throw it together. But for this purpose, I like to make sure that it's good. So now we're gonna add the yeast. And we want 2.5 teaspoons of instant yeast. Just throw it in there. That's 1, 2, and on this guy I have a 1/2 teaspoon. If you don't, you just eyeball it with your teaspoon. Gonna stir it around to make sure the yeast is in the milk, and then we're gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes and wait for it to get nice and bubbly. So it's been 10 minutes. I set my timer, it just went off. We're gonna look again at what's going on here. So everything's still warm. I can feel it through the Pyrex. My hands are clean. I just washed them. It just kind of feels like thick foamy milk. You can see that it's changed, not only in color, but there's lots of bubbles. And I'm just gonna give it a sniff. It smells very yeasty. So I'd like you to do the same thing in your kitchen. Just observe what you can using all of your senses. I'm not gonna ask you to taste this right now. I'm not gonna taste it. It'd probably be pretty gross. You can if you really want to, but not gonna ask you to. So, sight, smell, touch. Actually, there is a little bit of sound. It's bubbling. So yeah, play around with it, play with your senses. It smells very yeasty, just ground into the moment. I can feel the warmth. And we're gonna move on. So we are going to add this into our bowl. So I've got my dough hook attached. I've got my bowl attached. Pour this in. I realized one thing I forgot to grab was my spatula. So we'll just get the rest of that in there. Then we are going to add our eggs. We've got 2 eggs. I'm gonna crack them on the counter so no shells wind up in the bowl. Put that one down. Two eggs. Then we've got some honey. I have some honey here actually that my uncle made. He has bees, so that's kind of fun. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of the honey. Nice and sticky. All right, then we got flour. and we are going to do 3 cups. I usually just dip into my flour. Some people might level it in by spooning it into the cup. I'm not that precise or fancy. You can be if you want to. But we're just gonna dig in and give her a little shake. So that's 2. That's 3. And the last thing we've got is some salt. And we're gonna do half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, now I'm gonna turn my mixer on and I'm gonna let it go for a few minutes to make sure everything gets incorporated. If you're doing this by hand, might be a little bit of a journey for you, but just really ground into what you're doing. Use your hands, just knead everything together in the bowl. Or if you're using a hand mixer, same thing, just let it go. So we are gonna close this, we're gonna lock it, and we're gonna start. The mixer's been running for about 4 to 5 minutes, so that means all of the flour is incorporated, and we're gonna open it up and see what it looks like. So before, it was all separate ingredients. Everything is incorporated now, and we're just going to be mindful and observe. So it's really stretchy. Even just pulling the top of the mixer open stretched everything. It hasn't broken at all since I did that. When I touch it, it's really quite soft actually. We're just gonna peel a piece off. It still smells like yeast, but it smells a lot more like bread now. Like you can tell there's other stuff in there. It's obviously not making any sound. And I'm still not gonna ask you to taste it. You could if you really want to, but there's raw egg, and again, it probably wouldn't taste very nice. So I'm not gonna taste it right now. But yeah, I can see that it's stretchy. It's gone kind of like a beige color, and it's just really soft and kind of fun to play with. So take your moment, ground yourself into your body, take a look at where your dough is at. And then we're gonna move on to the next step of the recipe. I'm just going to get all of this off the hook. All right, and now we are gonna add 2 tablespoons of butter. So it's not all your butter. Just the butter that's been room temperature. So I pulled this out this morning. So it should be at room temperature by now. If you forgot to pull out your butter, you can pop it in the microwave. We don't want it fully melted, just soft. And we're gonna take 2 tablespoons of just the soft room temperature butter. And again, you could be a lot more precise than me if you really want to. This is just kind of what I've gotten used to, so I'm just doing my best to get those tablespoons in there. and we are going to switch this back on for a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna pull it out and knead it by hand for a little bit just to kind of help with our grounding, our mindfulness experimentation, and just kind of show you what kneading by hand looks like as well. All right, so now the butter's gone in there, and I'm just gonna knead by hand for a little bit, again, just to show you and to just get that little bit of extra of a mindfulness moment. So I'm putting some flour just on my counter. It feels kind of icky, feels pretty dry. And then we're gonna pop our dough onto the counter. It's still pretty sticky, but not as stretchy as it was before. I get all those other little bits, and I'm just gonna knead it a little bit. So usually we roll and fold with the palms of your hands, or heels of your hands, I guess, and we just fold it like this. So the dough's gotten really smooth. It's a lot less stretchy. It's nice and soft, which I always really like. I actually think it smells a bit less yeasty now that the butter's in there. It smells more like bread. It's got some heft to it. I don't think the color's changed much from last time. Again, I'm not gonna eat it. You can if you want, but yeah, it smells good. It feels good. It's soft. It's not too moist. It's not too dry. I can roll it into a ball. And yeah, kneading's just really fun. It's a really nice way to get into your body. It's rhythmic, which is really soothing for our nervous system. It just feels nice. Okay, so now I've got this nice little ball. I just mostly did that for fun and for my grounding. But again, you don't have to do that at all if you don't want to. But now it's a nice little ball. I'm gonna pop it back into the bowl, cover it with some plastic wrap, and then we're gonna wait for it to rise. So if I look at how big that ball is, we just wanna take note of it because it's gonna grow. And we wanna notice the growth because that's a fun part of it. So I'm just gonna take note of how big the ball is, cover this in plastic wrap, set it aside in a warm place for about an hour or until it doubles in size. So again, take note of how big the ball is because we're gonna see it grow. I'll see you back here in an hour. All right, it's been about an hour. I had this resting in a warm place and we're gonna see what happened. It's nice and big. Actually, the second I took off the saran wrap, you could smell it. It smells nice. It smells like bread. And I can actually almost feel a little bit of warmth on my face when I stick my face in there. You can see it's really smooth. It's actually like really nice to pet. Fun. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna punch it down. So we're just gonna get all of the air out of it. And as you can see, some big bubbles popped up. It also made a noise. Some squishing noises, lots of new bubbles. That one's pretty big. Pop them. So punch it all down. And then we're gonna flour the counter again and roll it out. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna take my rolling pin if you've got one. If not, you can use a glass. Or you could try to kind of push and pull it out with your hands. We want it to be pretty even in thickness. think that looks pretty good. And then we're gonna take the rest of the room temperature butter, so the stuff that's been sitting out today, and we're just gonna spread it on the dough. If your butter's not soft enough, you might have to kind of soften it in the microwave. Again, though, we're not looking for melted. We just want to spread it. Gets easier the more you go along. Just another thing to take note of. You can hear everything smushing. You can see that the butter's getting easier to spread, it's thinning out. Now my dough's mostly covered and I'm trying to get it mostly even. I think that looks pretty good. It's not gonna be perfect. And then we're gonna fold this guy in half. Kind of folding everything in onto itself. And I'm gonna roll it out a bit again because now we are gonna shape the buns. Oopsie. Okay. So, the other thing I want to do to prep is this is my pan for my buns. I'm going to spray it with some nonstick spray. I really like the pan baking spray because it has some flour in it that helps everything release, but you can use butter, you can use regular pan. And we're just going to give this a spray so our buns don't stick. And then I am going to use a dough cutter, but if you just have a knife or something, that's okay too. And we are gonna cut this into 12 pieces and roll it into balls that then we're gonna put in the pan. So we'll do one, just kind of cut. If you did a better job at getting it even, it might be a bit easier. Math isn't always my strong suit. All right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, ooh, 13. Okay, this one's a bit small, so we will smush it in to some of the smaller ones. Okay, now my other favorite part is we get to shape these. So we're gonna take each little ball. You can kind of smush it in your hand and then put it on your counter and kind of make like a dome or a claw, and you just give it a little roll. And it makes a nice round little bun. And then we just pop it in there. And we do that for each bun. Just kind of shape them, get the butter all in there. They become nice and smooth. All right, now I have 12 little dough babies. They are all in their pan. I spaced them out, but they're gonna rise again, so they'll probably wind up growing into each other. As you can see, they're not all perfect balls. Some are more round than others, which is totally okay. I'm just observing again what they look like. There's a little part of my brain that's like piping up and saying that they're not perfectly smooth, but again, I'm just noticing that thought. I'm witnessing it, trying not to judge it, and then yeah, these doughs still have little bubbles. They're quite smooth. They're shiny because of all the butter. And the smell of the baking pan is quite distinct. And so now I can smell it kind of mixed in with my dough. Again, we're not really getting any sounds or tastes right now. We will get to taste later. So these are gonna sit for another hour. Now, if you've taken my baking and self-care course, I want you to think about what kind of self-care maybe you could do in the next hour. Because you set aside this time for yourself today to make this recipe, and even though we have these kind of larger breaks in the time when we're not actually baking, I still want you to be mindful of what you're doing. So again, maybe you're not going to be necessarily focusing on your senses in between, which is totally fine, but maybe do some other form of self-care. So for example, in the first hour that the dough was rising, I finished a rom-com book that I was reading, which was like a nice little distraction, a bit of an escape. I played with my dog a little bit, which is always fun. And I actually made some snacks for myself for the next couple days at work. So do something for your self-care in the next hour that we're waiting for these to rise before they go in the oven. And I'd say maybe with like 15 minutes left on your timer, maybe start preheating your oven. We're preheating it to 350 Fahrenheit. So maybe do that, yeah, with 15 minutes or so left in our hour, because then we'll put the buns in the oven. And yeah, do some self-care in the meantime. If you haven't taken that course, it's available for you anytime you'd like. I'll see you in an hour. All right, so it's been another hour. I hope you got some good self-care in. And we are gonna take a look. So they've kind of flattened out and spread out rather than rose up, but I think that should still be okay. My oven is preheated, so it's ready to go. We're just gonna stick them in onto the middle rack. These are gonna bake for about 20 minutes or so, but like we did with the microwave with the milk, I usually reduce the baking time by like 3 to 5 minutes, just so I can check on things first and make sure that everything's okay. So I'm actually gonna set my timer for 15 minutes so that I can take a quick peek and make sure that nothing's burning or getting too brown. So I'll see you again in about 15 minutes. Okay, so I checked the oven at 15 minutes and the buns were really blonde still, so I put them in for another 5 minutes to the 20 minutes, which is what the recipe called for. So let's take a look. They're still pretty blonde. There's a couple here that are browned nicely. So I think I'm gonna still give them a couple more minutes here just to brown up on the top really nicely. So I think we'll start with maybe 2 more minutes and see how it goes. Okay, I think they're looking good, so we can turn everything off. And they're nice and golden. We'll get them ready for finishing. So in the end, I wound up having these in the oven for actually like 24, 25 minutes or so. And the recipe called for 20. So every oven's different, but they've got some nice browning on the top without being burnt. So hopefully we're good to go. Now we'll just take that last little bit of butter that we melted. I just melted mine in the microwave this time. I have a pastry brush, but you could do this with like a spoon or something, drizzle on top if you want. And we're just gonna brush the tops with some more butter. Make them extra nice. And as I'm doing this, I can see all the differences in color in my buns. These ones got a lot more brown. This one's a little blonde still, but a bunch of them have kind of turned flaky. You can see them pulling apart. They smell delicious. You can kind of hear a little bit of noise from them. Not a lot. And we will get more of a sense of what they feel and most importantly taste like when they've cooled down a little bit. All right, so I brushed them all with butter. They're nice and shiny looking now. And then this isn't in the recipe, but I thought it would just be really yummy. I have flaky salt, so I'm just going to, oopsie, that got a little bit too much in that section, but scatter a little bit on top just for a bit of extra flavor. And we are going to let these cool for a few minutes before we try them out. Okay, I've given them a chance to cool down. I think I've been pretty patient. So let's pull this out and see how it goes. So this one's nice and brown, even on that side. It's a little bit lighter on this side. It smells really good. It smells like baked bread. There's a bit of like a hollow sound when you tap it, which usually means that it's done and that it's baked all the way through. And then we're just gonna kind of pull it apart. Maybe you can see that steam there and all the kind of layers that make up this bun. Yummy. And now we're gonna actually get to taste it, which is the sense that we haven't used so far. It's nice and light and fluffy. You can kind of see all the different layers. I get little bites of salt where I put that flaky salt on it. And there's a little bit of like a crunch where the bread's quite brown. So yeah, enjoy this last step where you get to engage with all 5 of your senses and taste all of your hard work. I hope you had fun today. I hope you learned something new. And if you're someone who bakes a lot and none of this was new to you in terms of the baking portion, I hope you at least got to engage with your baking in a way that's maybe different than what you're used to. I'm really glad you joined me for this, and I hope you take this mindfulness and grounding technique into the rest of your week. See you soon.